How's it hanging, everybody? I'm Alex, and welcome to All Day NBA. On this channel, we're going to be discussing the latest NBA news and what it means for every team. And today is a great day to start because yesterday, Giannis Antetokounmpo just re-signed with the Milwaukee Bucks for 5 years and $228 million. So we'll be dissecting who are the winners and losers of that deal. So this deal is going to send waves through the NBA and impact a lot of different teams. But the obvious winner here is the Milwaukee Bucks. While this is the largest deal in NBA history by both total money and average annual value, Giannis is well worth it. I believe that if the NBA weren't a cap market, the top 5 or 10 players would be making almost $100 million a year. In addition, the Bucks wouldn't be able to replace Giannis in any capacity next summer if they were to lose him in free agency, because even if he left, they wouldn't have any significant cap space, assuming Drew Holiday picks up his player option. If Giannis did leave, the Bucks wouldn't be able to even effectively tank because they traded 3 first-round draft picks to the Pelicans for Drew Holiday in an effort to get Giannis to stay. And considering that small market teams usually don't attract big name free agents, the Bucks would have been bad for a very long time if Giannis left. So yes, the Bucks are far and away the biggest winners of this deal. Another winner of Giannis re-signing with the Bucks long term is the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers. Earlier this offseason, Anthony Davis delayed signing a new contract with the Lakers, and there were rumors that this was in order to feel out whether Giannis was interested in joining them next season. If Giannis were interested, Anthony would take a 1-year deal, potentially with a player option, so that the Lakers could have cap space next summer to sign Giannis. But eventually, both Anthony Davis and LeBron James ended up signing new contracts with the Lakers long term, so they wouldn't have cap space next offseason. What this tells me is that the Lakers knew that they had no shot at signing Giannis next summer. So if the Lakers did not have a shot at signing him next offseason, they're winning this deal because he's not forming a super team elsewhere. The Lakers are favored to win the NBA championship next season, and rightfully so. They added many important pieces to a team that already won an NBA championship last season. Despite having by far the NBA's best duo in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they had a lot of holes on their bench and didn't have a ton of complementary players to LeBron and AD. A great way to improve your bench is to sign the winner and runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year, and that's exactly what the Lakers did. They signed Montrezl Harrell, who won the award, who's a great role man, and Dennis Schroeder, who's an excellent scoring point guard who came in second for the award. The Lakers also signed big man Marc Gasol, re-signed power forward Markieff Morris, and they have a second-year player, Talen Horton-Tucker, who they took in the second round last year, who appears to be a gem based on his preseason performance and could see an increased role. The only thing that could derail the Lakers' status as favorites for this year's championship would be James Harden getting traded to contender, say the Brooklyn Nets or the Philadelphia 76ers. However, if Giannis were to join Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis in Dallas, Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero in Miami, or Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet in Toronto, one of those teams could have seriously challenged the Lakers for the favorite status in 2022. Even though Milwaukee added Drew Holiday this offseason, they're still not a super team because they don't have a superstar next to Giannis. In the past 2 seasons, we've seen Giannis dominate in the regular season en route to winning regular season MVP, but then fall flat on his face in the postseason as the Bucks got eliminated before the finals both years. Giannis has some serious holes in his game, such as a lack of jump shot and ineptitude at the free throw line that got exposed in the postseason. So for that reason, I do not believe the Bucks are a serious threat to the Lakers, so the Lakers should be very happy that Giannis elected to stay there for the next 6 years. The final big winner of Giannis's extension is small market teams as a whole. It is very difficult to be a small market team in the NBA. Big name free agents almost never go to small market teams, and they often leave small market teams that drafted them in favor of big market teams where they can team up with other superstars and make more money with endorsements. The best example of the dilemma of being a small market team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. In back-to-back years, 2007, 2008, and 2009, the Thunder drafted future NBA MVPs in Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. However, the Thunder eventually traded James Harden at a very young age to the Houston Rockets because they didn't want to pay the luxury tax money they needed to keep him around, because they're a small market team and they can't generate very much revenue. Kevin Durant would leave for the Golden State Warriors in free agency a few years later, and Russell Westbrook eventually had to be traded because the Thunder couldn't put a contender around him. And all the while, the Thunder never won an NBA championship. Even when the Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship in 2019, Kawhi Leonard still left for the Los Angeles Clippers in free agency. So Giannis re-signing with the Bucks is a huge victory for every small market team because it breaks the recent trend of superstars signing with big market teams away from small market teams after their second contract. First round picks are forced to sign a 2-year deal with 2 team options for their rookie contract. For their second contract, they're restricted free agents, so their teams can match any offer from any other team and they have to sign it. So they effectively can't leave unless the team doesn't want them anymore. But after this contract, they become unrestricted free agents and they can sign wherever they want, which is where we begin to see players leaving their small market teams for big market teams so they can get more money in endorsements and team up with other superstars. Giannis broke this trend by signing with the small market Milwaukee Bucks for 5 years, which is a huge win for every small market team because now they know that they have a chance to keep the superstars that they draft long term. The first loser of the Giannis extension is the teams who had cap space going into the summer of 2021, primarily the Mavericks, Heat, and Raptors. If Josh Richardson opted out of his player option next summer, the Mavericks would have just about enough cap space to sign Giannis. If he opted in, they would need to do a little bit of maneuvering. But either way, Giannis could have been very attracted to Dallas's young core. The Mavericks already have 2 bona fide superstars when healthy, in Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. And Doncic is only 21 years old, and Porzingis is only 25. So adding the 26-year-old Giannis could have been the next great dynasty in the NBA for years to come. So while Dallas still has a very good ascending young core, they've missed out on the opportunity of a lifetime. The Miami Heat went to the NBA Finals last year, led by Jimmy Butler and a group of young players featuring Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. With Adebayo at only 23 and Hero at only 20, adding Giannis would have made this team the favorite in the East for years to come. The Heat have over $50 million in team options next year, which they could have easily declined to create a max cap slot for Giannis. The Heat will still be a contender going forward, but they face stiff competition from the Bucks, Celtics, and Raptors for the East title. The Raptors could have had just about enough money to sign Giannis to a max contract by declining Aaron Baines' team option next year. They would have had even more if Norman Powell declined his player option. Even after Kawhi Leonard left them in free agency last summer, the Raptors still managed the second best record in the entire NBA last season. So adding Giannis could have taken them to another level as potentially the best team in the entire NBA. Even though it's tough to imagine a superstar of Giannis' caliber going to a small market team outside of the US like Toronto, there was reason to believe that Giannis wouldn't factor that into his decision. So it's going to be a bitter pill to swallow for the Raptors that they won't get a shot at Giannis next summer. Next up on the losers side of things, we have any team that was pursuing James Harden via trade from the Houston Rockets. When James Harden initially demanded a trade from Houston, there weren't a ton of obvious destinations for him. The Nets, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, appeared to be his preferred destination, and the Sixers were thrown into the mix because they have a GM who is a huge supporter of Harden in Daryl Morey as the former GM of the Rockets. But other than those two, not a whole lot of contending teams had the assets to trade for Harden. Now that Giannis signed an extension with the Bucks, however, the three teams I mentioned as potential suitors for him, the Mavericks, the Heat, and the Raptors, could attempt to trade for James Harden because they no longer value their cap space in 2021 as highly. It's difficult to imagine any offer from these three teams topping an offer involving Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, or Joel Embiid. But assuming those four players are off the table, a package of young players and picks from one of the three Giannis suitors could top an offer from the Nets or Sixers. Even though Harden appears to have a preferred destination in Brooklyn, and any other team that trades for him is running the risk that in 2 years he leaves them in free agency, teams have shown that they are willing to take that risk. For example, the Oklahoma City Thunder traded for Paul George when it appeared he only wanted to go to the LA Lakers, and he re-signed. And Kawhi Leonard was traded to the Toronto Raptors when it appeared he wanted to go to LA, and they won a championship. And even though Kawhi didn't re-sign, they considered that a win. So whether one of the teams I mentioned or all three of them tries to trade for James Harden, this is definitely a loss for the original teams in the mix to trade for him. Rounding out our list of losers is Giannis's marketability. This is definitely not a bad decision for Giannis personally because it appears he really loves the city of Milwaukee. And it might not even be a bad decision competitively because the Bucks showed that they're willing to acquire top-end talent at any cost by trading for Jrue Holiday and giving up 3 first-round picks and players. A roster led by Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Jrue Holiday might not be the best in the NBA, but it's certainly a contender, and it might be the best in the Eastern Conference. But from a marketability standpoint, this is a mistake. Despite being one of the 5 best players in the NBA, Giannis hasn't received the level of endorsements that other superstars have. And as long as he's in a very small market such as Milwaukee, that's going to continue. He is going to make a little more money from a salary standpoint because the Bucks can offer him more than other teams, but he is going to lose a lot of money in endorsements by not going to a big market like LA, which we saw LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard do recently. The reality is, though, that if he doesn't care about making more money than he already will, he doesn't have to, because his children, his children's children, his children's children's children, and so on will all be very, very well off because of the money he's made in the NBA. So even if it doesn't really matter to him, Giannis is going to lose some money by signing with the Bucks, even though he makes more in salary. Finally, we have a wild card, and that's a team that could benefit from this signing and could lose from this signing, and that is the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers have now gone all in on winning a championship right now by extending Paul George to a max deal for the next 4 years. And considering that George will be 35 by the end of this deal, on its own, this is not a good contract. However, the Clippers didn't really have a choice but to extend Paul George because they traded almost all of the young talent and draft picks that they could for him. Even if the Clippers wanted to let Paul George and Kawhi Leonard go to tank and get high draft picks, they couldn't because they traded almost all of the draft picks and pick swaps that they could to the Oklahoma City Thunder to get Paul George. So now the Clippers are in a position where they have to just pray that Kawhi will re-sign because a team with Paul George and no other superstar is not a contender. So now back to the Giannis deal. If Kawhi Leonard re-signs with the Clippers in free agency next summer,
The Clippers will be winners of this deal for the same reason the Lakers are winners of this deal. The Clippers are still one of the top 4 teams in the NBA right now, along with the Lakers, Bucks, and Nets. And if Kawhi Leonard re-signs, they will continue to be. And along with the Lakers, Giannis re-signing with the Bucks is a big win for the Clippers if they can keep Kawhi, because Giannis is now not going to form a super team that is head and shoulders above them. However, if Kawhi does not re-sign with the Clippers right away, this could be a big loss for them, because all of the teams that had cap space to sign Giannis could revert their cap space to try to sign Kawhi Leonard in free agency next summer. The Mavericks, Heat, and even the Raptors, who he left last summer, would love to have Kawhi Leonard on their team to turn their contending team into a juggernaut, the same way they would have if they'd acquired Giannis. Kawhi, Paul George, and the Clippers fell short of their championship aspirations last year, so this year they're under even more pressure to win a championship with all of these suitors coming for Kawhi in free agency next summer. And that's it. Those are the winners and losers of Giannis Antetokounmpo's extension. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you like this video, please drop a like. It really helps this channel grow. I can't emphasize that enough. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss another video. I highly recommend it if you love the NBA. Later this week, I am going to be rolling out a video with a James Harden trade scenario that I believe is plausible now that he's demanded a trade. That is, if a trade doesn't happen before I can make the video. So we got that to look forward to. And until then, peace out, guys. Have a nice day.